And we used to play all Sunday. I was a golfer by trade, because I was a trained golfer, and I was pretty good when I was about 14. Yeah. But then in California, they didn't allow ladies on the court.
Katharine Hepburn had been secretly in love with a man for nearly 3 decades. Who would have thought that behind the glamorous stage lights, she had such a deep secret love? Why did they never make it public? And what made her willing to sacrifice her career to be with him until the last minute? So who was this mysterious man who had been with Katharine Hepburn for 20 years? And how did they meet? Was the first meeting between these two legends as fateful as people say? Let's go back to 1942, where it all began. The fateful encounter. Fate seemed to orchestrate the legendary pairing of Katharine Hepburn and Spencer Tracy in 1942. A series of fortunate circumstances brought them together after Tracy's previous film, The Yearling, had been scrubbed due to technical difficulties in Florida, while Hepburn was riding high from her success in The Philadelphia Story. The iconic duo first met at one of the side entrances to the Thalberg building on the MGM lot, before shooting began on Woman of the Year. At 34 years old, Hepburn stood tall in her high heels next to the 41-year-old Tracy, prompting her to remark, "I fear I may be too tall for you, Mr. Tracy." Director Joseph Mankiewicz, witnessing this exchange, quipped, "Don't worry, Kate. He'll cut you down to his size." This prophetic comment foreshadowed the dynamic that would define both their professional and personal relationship. Initially, their impressions of each other were hardly romantic. Hepburn was admittedly starstruck and entranced from the beginning, while Tracy's first observation was decidedly less poetic. He noticed she had dirty fingernails. Nonetheless, something profound clicked between them. According to Hepburn's friend and biographer, Christopher Anderson, it was one of those love-at-first-sight things. Within a week of working together, formality dissolved as they began calling each other Spence and Kate. Their on-screen chemistry proved electric, with audiences immediately responding to their staccato, quick-witted exchanges and meaningful glances that conveyed more than dialogue ever could. Their professional partnership quickly blossomed into romance. Actor Gene Kelly recalled seeing them during lunch breaks at the studio, where they'd just meet and sit on a bench on the lot. They'd hold hands and talk, and everybody left them alone in their little private world. As Hepburn herself stated, "On screen, Spencer and I are the perfect American couple." This chemistry translated into 9 films together, essentially creating a new template for romantic comedy. Their working dynamic showcased equality and mutual respect, each capable of challenging and supporting the other. What began as professional admiration evolved into a complex personal relationship. They connected cerebrally, physically, and emotionally, becoming what Anderson described as kindred spirit soulmates in a way. Yet from the very beginning, their romance existed within the constraints of Tracy's marriage to Louise, a circumstance that would define their relationship for the next 26 years. Katharine Hepburn was instantly drawn to Spencer Tracy when she first met him, and that feeling quickly blossomed into a deep relationship. But if they were so deeply in love, why was their relationship never made public for nearly 3 decades? What kept their love so secret for so many years? The relationship stayed a sec Brett. During their 26-year relationship, Katharine Hepburn and Spencer Tracy had one of the most profound love affairs in Hollywood history. Yet strangely, they never made their relationship public. Behind their long silence were not only personal choices, but also religious beliefs, social pressures, and the strict rules of the golden age film industry. At the core of this secrecy was Spencer Tracy, a devout Roman Catholic with unshakable religious convictions. For Tracy, divorce was not only unacceptable, but a grave sin. He had married Louise Treadwell in 1923, and although they lived apart for much of the time, the marriage remained legally binding until Tracy's death. His greatest obsession was not only Catholic doctrine on marriage, but also his guilt over his son John, who was born deaf. Tracy once expressed that he believed this was God's punishment for his sins. This belief made it even more difficult for him to completely end his marriage to Louise, even though his feelings were completely directed towards Hepburn. In a profound conversation in 1966 with Father Eugene Kennedy of the Maryknoll Order, Tracy revealed that he had considered becoming a priest, an aspiration that showed that religious faith was a core, almost sacred part of his personality. In addition to the personal factor, both Tracy and Hepburn had to deal with a quiet but powerful force, the Hollywood studio system. During this period, major film studios tightly controlled the image and personal lives of stars through morality clauses in their contracts. Extramarital affairs, no matter how sincere, were considered a serious threat to reputation and career. Not only would the publicity of Tracy and Hepburn's relationship have damaged Tracy's model man image, but Hepburn would have been labeled a third wheel, something that could easily have destroyed her career in a conservative era. As one insider put it, if the rumor that Spencer had cheated on his saintly wife Louise with Kate had leaked out, they would have become scandalous icons instead of legends. So studio directors, PR departments, and personal managers worked closely to protect the real story from the limelight, or at least keep it a secret from the public. In addition, their relationship was maintained in a state of voluntary silence. Katharine Hepburn, for all her fame and courage, never once forced Tracy to leave her family. She seemed to accept all the limits of this relationship with unconditional devotion. Actress Lauren Bacall once observed and said Hepburn loved Tracy blindly, a love that did not require, did not commit, just wanted to be by his side and share the years behind the spotlight. They lived in separate houses, only quietly appeared together in films, and rarely revealed intimate images to the media. In their daily lives, they also carefully avoided parties, public events, and even avoided being photographed together. However, to those inside Hollywood, their relationship was no longer a secret. Actor Gene Kelly once recalled the moment when the two held hands in a hidden corner of the set, sharing that everyone left them alone in their private little world. A quiet but affectionate space. That long-lasting secrecy was not because they did not love each other deeply enough, but because amidst countless barriers, religion, social morality, and the strict gaze of the times, they chose to love in their way, quietly but intensely, far from the spotlight, but no less splendid. But what was going on in their hearts? Keeping their relationship secret for nearly 3 decades was not just a matter of social pressure or religious obligation. It also reflected a deeper reality, the emotional turmoil and conflict between them. So amid all those restrictions and taboos, was their love truly complete? And what did Katharine Hepburn feel when she chose to love silently for all those years? The emotional complexity behind the veil of secrecy that hung over them for more than 2 decades was a relationship that was not simply one of love, but one of conflict, patience, and absolute sacrifice. Katharine Hepburn and Spencer Tracy were not just 2 great movie stars. They were 2 people caught in a tangled emotional web where love was inseparable from moral burdens, illnesses, and personal obsessions. Their private world was a silent and guarded space because it contained not only passion, but also the darkness of insecurity, guilt, and compromise. For Hepburn, her love for Tracy was not something to be displayed in newspapers or on red carpets. It was a personal, almost absolute belief that she held with all her heart. In her memoir, Me Stories of My Life, she wrote, "I loved him. I would do anything for him." And she did just that not once, but for nearly 26 years. Katharine Hepburn gradually shrank her world to put Tracy at the center. She not only hid behind his aura, but also volunteered to do everything from the smallest things. Preparing meals, watching his sleep, patiently enduring his irrational anger, his drunkenness, and his severe depression. I tried not to bother him. I was happy to serve him, to care for him, to listen to him, she once confided. There was no hint of resentment, just a quiet, loving resignation. Spencer Tracy, by contrast, was a man torn between his family duties, his deep Catholic faith, and a love he could not let go of. His religious convictions made divorce from his wife Louise Treadwell impossible, added to the intense guilt that his son John was born deaf, which Tracy believed was God's punishment. He lived in a state of perpetual torment. That torment was poured out in alcohol, sleeping pills, and desperate bouts of insomnia. Sometimes, Hepburn's tolerance was pushed to the limit. Once Tracy, in a drunken rage, slapped her until she bled. He remembered nothing afterwards, but Hepburn did not leave, not openly hurt, not tell. Instead, she stayed quietly, as if understanding that Tracy's inner demons were not his true nature. And as Tracy's health deteriorated in his final years, Hepburn withdrew from the spotlight almost entirely. She refused roles. She refused interviews. Her schedule revolved around hospitalizations, his sleepless nights, and his persistent coughs. She sat by his bedside for hours, telling stories, talking, even just holding his hand in the dark. Their bond was no longer one of ordinary passion. It was a deep, silent connection, as if they had chosen each other in this life to endure and overcome together. Perhaps it was this unconditional devotion that made their relationship one of Hollywood's greatest and most tragic loves. Katharine Hepburn's love for Spencer Tracy is a story both beautiful and contradictory, where devotion, sacrifice, and hurt are interwoven like untangling threads. But as the curtain closes and the details of the relationship are revealed, another question arises. Was it as simple as Hepburn tells it? Could it be that behind the silence there are hidden details that the public has never heard of? And it is this silence that has lasted for decades that has become fertile ground for endless speculation and debate about the true nature of this love. Speculation and controversy arose after the deaths of both Katharine Hepburn and Spencer Tracy. Their romance and sacrifice were no longer kept in the shadows. Instead, they became the center of fierce debate, mixed with admiration and skepticism. Many in Hollywood academia and fans began digging deeper into the story, searching for answers to unanswered questions. As early as the 1930s, Hepburn was the focus of rumors about her sexuality. This was especially true when she played Sylvia Scarlett, 1935, in which she shared a kissing scene with actress Demi Moore, an unprecedented and shocking moment in the entertainment world. After her divorce from her husband, Ludlow Ogden Smith, in 1934, Hepburn was rumored to have been living with a female companion, fueling rumors about her sexuality. Tracy's struggles with alcoholism and depression have also fueled conspiracy theories about his sexuality. In 2015, screenwriter Larry Kramer even publicly stated that everyone in Hollywood knew that Hepburn and Tracy were both gay, and suggested that their relationship was engineered by the studio system to protect their public image. A prominent figure in Hollywood's backstage circles Scotty Bowers, a former Marine and love broker, has helped fuel the wave of suspicion. In his memoir, Full Service 2012, and the documentary Scotty and the Secret History of Hollywood 2018, he claimed to have introduced Hepburn to around 150 women over nearly 4 decades and admitted to having had sex with Spencer Tracy. He frankly shared they were just friends. They were not in the bedroom. At the same time, journalist Liz Smith, a close friend of Hepburn, is said to have responded to this factor, creating more heated discussion. According to Scotty Bowers and Larry Kramer, behind the Hepburn-Tracy love story was a carefully orchestrated plan by the studio's marketing departments. The relationship helped to save Tracy's staunch Catholic image, and at the same time, it justified Hepburn's unmarried status according to the social norms of the time. Director Matt Tiernauer, who chronicled the story in the documentary, asserted that the public reaction to these revelations was a form of homophobia. It was Hollywood's way of perpetuating the straight myth. Specifically, the moral contract system of the time required stars to maintain an image that conformed to traditional norms. Claiming that they were dating turned out to be a strategic move to avoid greater risks. Despite the heated debate, and none of them living to respond, Hepburn always stood by her views. She once shared that in her 27 years with Tracy, she felt absolute happiness. The devotion, sacrifice, and choice to suffer in silence were not only a testament to the depth of love, but also reflected a very personal aspect, that of self-determination in love, a choice that Hepburn believed was worthy and fulfilling. But amid the never-ending doubts and debates, what is real? What is just a facade built to protect an unnamed love? When Spencer Tracy passed away one June morning, the world realized that there are truths that do not need to be made public, because Hepburn's pain and silence were also the deepest confession. How much can a woman sacrifice for a love that can never be made public? The death of Spencer Tracy. On the 10th of June 1967, Spencer Tracy passed away in the comfort of his own home. Katharine Hepburn was present and only a few steps away from him. The couple had just finished making their final film together, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, which was a tragic farewell to their nearly 3-decade love. The film was their final feature together. Tracy, who had been battling heart illness, diabetes, and alcoholism for their whole lives, died away peacefully just 17 days after the production of the movie was completed. One of the first people to discover that Tracy had passed away was Katharine. In her memory, she recalled, "I heard a glass drop. And then there was utter silence," the speaker said. This was the moment when she realized that he had left this world not because he was in great pain, but because he had given up after a life of toiling away tirelessly. The fact that she did not show up to his burial, however, was the thing that surprised the public the most. Many individuals were unable to comprehend. A few individuals had a judgmental attitude, but Hepburn never once felt sorrow for making that choice. She was very open about it. "I did not intend to harm your wife. It was not appropriate for me to go into a location where I did not belong." The last several decades of Tracy's life were spent nearly entirely away from his wife Louise, even though he never divorced her. On the other hand, he never once abandoned her, either due to his religious convictions or possibly because of the sorrow he felt about his son who was deaf. To a greater extent than anybody else, Katharine knew that. In quiet, she was the third person who did not make a demand, did not struggle, and did not make it apparent to the public. Therefore, in the final moments of his life, she decided to remain on the sidelines just as she had done during his whole life, remaining silently by his side. After that, Hepburn never again watched the television show Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. She stated that she could not stand to look into Tracy's eyes, hear his voice, or hear his grin, since all of these things were memories that would never be forgotten. Her life continued, and she continued to make movies and win Oscars. On the other hand, Tracy's heart could never be replaced by anybody else. She said, "I have never loved anyone else until now. He was my man, even though he was never mine." She said, "Do you think a silent but sacrificial love like Hepburn and Tracy's still exists in today's world? If you were in Katharine Hepburn's position, would you be able to stay silent for 20 years to protect the person you love?" Please share your thoughts in the comments section below. We would love to hear from you. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more interesting updates. Thank you, and see you in the next videos.